Or Ben is
Okay,
becoming very cryptic.
all right. Rather than mention that person individually, let's just talk about the concept of that Canada has fallen and is felled. And
Mhm.
the point here is that we're under new management, whether we know it or not. Now, you might ask, why would anything like this be done surreptitiously? Why doesn't the public have the right to know who's in charge of their country?
Right.
Well, the simple answer to that is that we're under foreign occupation. We're not under the control of elected representatives.
True. True.
We're under control of infiltrators who are
Right.
who've been inserted into our political system
Correct.
without our knowledge or control.
That's right.
We thought we were voting for them. We thought we were voting for people who had our best interests at heart.
Right.
No, no, and no.
Mhm.
And this has been done over a extensive period of time,
That's right.
using extremely sophisticated technologies such as Dominion voting machines.
Correct.
In the case of the elections, remember in Canada system, you have to be elected by your party as a leader
Right.
in front of the provincial election. But all the party
Right.
leaderships were done using Dominion voting machines, which are connected to the internet, which can be manipulated.
No, that's right.
Example: our current leader Justin Trudeau was elected in as leader of the Liberal Party in this way.
That's right.
Now, Elections Canada says, "Oh, but we have paper ballots." Yeah, well, there's only one problem: the count done of the paper ballots is then sent to the election headquarters via electronic means.
Hmm.
In other words, each individual riding counts their paper ballots and then sends the information over the internet.
Yeah.
What? In other words, it's electronic. In other words, it can be
Yep.
manipulated. So that's
Yep.
another lie, and I can go
Yep.
into more details.
Right.
You know, the point is that we're not living in a democracy. In fact, we may have elected representatives who are controlled by outside forces, such as the WEF
Right.
or maybe the Communist Party in of another nation,
Yeah.
or whoever it is, maybe a deep, dark, secret cabal.
Sure.
The point is that there's a lot of special interests at play here that are trying desperately to control us and our opinions and put us in a false sense of democratic security.
Of course. Of course.
Now, why would that be? Why is it necessary to lie? Why don't we just have police in the streets, martial law, concentration camps for dissidents, totalitarian kings or dictators with a Praetorian guard protecting them? Why don't we have just overt totalitarian, fascist control?
Yeah. Yeah. That would be a good
It
question.
would
I
save a lot
wonder
of
why.
it would save a lot of time and money, wouldn't it?
That's right.
Oh, well, maybe there's a reason for that.
Oh.
Maybe it's because totalitarian overt fascist control is more dangerous. Because the
Hmm.
people can see what it is and might actually get together, form resistance groups, head for the hills, and make resistance underground armies, such as
Right.
Marshal Tito's resistance against the Nazis in Yugoslavia during World War II, which, by the way, was the most successful
Hmm.
resistance movement against that tyranny.
Hmm.
In fact, it was so successful that they sent the most elite unit in the entire German armed forces, which is the Waffen SS paratroopers,
Hmm.
which nobody's ever heard about, by the way, in order to try to destroy Mr. Tito's, headquarters in 1944. Well,
Wow.
why would they? In other words, it's much better to keep people
Hmm.
in ignorance,
Right.
in supplication to something that they don't know. They're bowing down before.
That's right.
They're blinded. And by the way, in Canada, in our particular situation, you'll see that the people who have resisted the most successfully such as the pastor of the church in Alberta,
Right.
was a man who grew up in an East Bloc country. In his case,
Right.
I believe it was Hungary, and
Right.
and can see very well that the markings and the signs of a totalitarian political system, which
Right.
we in so-called democratic Western countries have been, you know, we've been blinded and we've been coerced, but not coerced overtly. We've been sort of mollycoddled or babied into thinking that we live in a democracy and can express our opinions freely, and we can't. And that's why we're susceptible to control, such as the recent medical emergency, or the attempt to control us with some kind of electronic tag. Now that tag could be a passport, it could be an ID, it could be something that you're required to have at all times, and this is leading into a some kind of cloud computer where you can be tracked,
Of course.
just like a bear with a
Right.
little clip on its ear, so that
Right.
they know where you are in your habitat,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe a moose,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe a sheep.
Yep.
And is that what we consider to be a free and democratic society? No, it is not. So how can they get away with this? How can they put tags and trackers on you under the guise of a so-called health emergency, where there's no actual objective evidence that the death rate in this country has gone up over the last 3 years? So how can that
Right.
be? Well, that's because it has nothing to do with the reason they say. It has to
Yes.
do with what they want to do, subvertly and covertly, and that is
Right.
to track you and to control you, and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and perhaps even harm you.
Of course.
Now, is this going to succeed, or is it coming to an end?
Good question.
No, I believe that it's coming to an end, and it's coming to an end, and there's people that are standing up. There's people
Right.
like you and me who are making
Yeah.
podcasts, YouTube
Yep.
channel videos, and
Yep.
communications, and groups of people that are banding together. And that's not
Yes.
what they wanted. They thought they would have us all controlled. They didn't realize that you don't have to be a gorilla hiding in the forest.
Right.
You can be a podcaster or a truth teller, hiding on the internet.
True.
And you can send out your message to humanity instead of sending out arrows to the king's soldiers.
That's right.
You know, and that is what's happening right now. And they have lost control. They have lost control. And I'll give you an example.
Sure.
Probably the most independent-minded, self-sufficient, and sovereign conscious people in Canada might very well be those that live in the prairie provinces.
Yeah.
And this week we have Alberta.
Yeah.
Alberta's standing up, and I'll put the link in the description here.
I just saw that one.
Yeah.
Is it from National Post? Danielle
That's right.
something?
That's
Yeah.
right. She is
I
the.
haven't gone through the details yet.
Yeah, I'll put the link in the description so that people can read the details. But she is the
Sure.
leader, or the new leader, taking over from Jason Kenney, of
Right.
what we would call their Conservative Party.
Right.
This party has by far the majority support of the people, especially since their current leader, Mr. Kenney, has been revealed to be a WEF puppet.
Right.
Evidence for that: he's attended their meetings, he's received awards from them, and the Alberta people, as soon as they found that out, turned against him. He's been
Yeah.
inundated with hate mail, and he's been basically forced to resign.
Mhm,
And he's done
mhm.
so. And now the person who's going to take over is a woman who is promising to enact legislation that allows Alberta to refuse the control of the federal government if such laws, such federal laws and mandates infringe upon the constitutional rights of the citizens of Alberta.
Nice.
Now, what's interesting about this is that it's not like Alberta gets attacked by some crazy law from Ottawa and then has to go and fight in the courts,
Right.
because that's their game.
Right.
They're turning the tables.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
saying we will refuse to comply,
Mm-hmm.
and you can take us to court.
Mm-hmm.
Have fun.
Nice.
That'll take a few years, won't it?
Nice.
You know, because that's the
Yeah.
game that they've always played against us. They've been
Of course.
taking away our businesses. They've been forcing us to do this and that, and and it's been a very subtle form of force. In other words, nobody's been forced to take any medical procedures,
Right.
but you've been required to do so if you want to use certain public services. If you want to go and eat in somebody's privately owned restaurant.
Right.
And all kinds of other constitutional restrictions, such as living at a dormitory in a university.
That's right.
In other words, nobody's holding a gun to your head.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but they're taking away your constitutional liberties.
Right.
Okay, and then they're forcing you to fight back in the court system in order to prove that they're wrong and you're right. In other words,
Mm-hmm.
the little guy against the big government.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's not a fair playing field, is it?
Nope.
Well, Alberta's decided that they're going to be David,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to slay the giant with with their little slingshot called provincial legislation, and they're going to simply say, we do not agree. We will not comply. You can order your inspectors to test our water and try to put some kind of nitrogen or carbon tax on us, or you can try to tell us what to wear on our faces, or you can try to tell us what to put in our bodies. But you know what? We're just not going to do it. In other words, F you. And you know what? If you try to force us, you can take us to court over it. And that'll take a
Right.
while. And if you try to do a Northwest Rebellion and send in the RCMP with guns, well, you don't have the right to do that without the Emergencies Act.
Correct.
And you've already tried that, so you've shot your load, didn't you? You're out of ammo on that one.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, the Alberta people are standing up for their rights, and they're an example of what should be done across this planet, not just in Canada.
Right.
Every local municipality should band together with its citizens and enact legislation and laws such as that. We don't comply. We don't agree. Now, I'd like to ask you: do you feel
Yeah.
that this is a sensible, a non-violent, and civilized, answer?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Do we need truckers blocking streets? No. Do we need, farmers towing away police cars? Now, those things might be necessary in order to make people aware of the problem.
Right.
But the real solution to the problem is to use the tools at our disposal.
Right.
We have democratic procedures. We have votes. We have legislatures. We have all those things. What you have to do is you have to turn those things against our oppressors. Because those things are ours. And you know why they're ours? Because we pay for them with our tax dollars. The WEF does not subsidize the Canadian democratic institutions, does it?
Nope.
So it can't control them unless we agree. And if we don't agree, then they're just going to have to stay in Davos and play polo or whatever they do there. I don't know.
Right.
They got no power unless we let them in. They got no hold over us unless we allow it. And, and this is what people have to wake up. You see, people don't have a concept of this because they're so lazy. They're so unknowledgeable about their civic duties and responsibilities. They've been, placated and I can't even say the word, anesthetized by I don't know, some Hollywood star's big butt. Or some video game or some latest fashion or some Hollywood movie or I don't know what it is, some entertainment of whatever it is, in order to deviate your focus
Mm-hmm.
from your God-given constitutional rights to elect your own representatives and decide your own government and your own policies. And we have to fight against this. And unfortunately, it's a uphill battle. It's
Right.
not easy.
Yes.
But once you realize what's going on, it can be easy.
Mm.
It can be easy. For example, the next party leadership or the next election should not be electronic,
Right.
and ballots or votes or things like that should be delivered in a dump truck to Elections Canada with invigilators watching while they count them.
Yeah.
See, we can do this. Every polling station should have a multitude of citizen reporters with their cell phones recording everybody that comes in and out 24 hours a day to make sure that there's no ballot stuffing. You know, if we took the care to protect our system, then our system could not be used against us. It could be used for us. So, I'm not going to say it's our fault, but I'm going to suggest it.
Right.
I'm going to suggest that it is our fault if we do nothing.
True. True. Very true.
Um, one more point.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
We've been told in our province of BC today that a new batch of medical procedures are available
Right.
for our ingestion, and they're making it just like they did before. They're saying, "Oh, it's so valuable and such a marvelous technology."
Did you watch the conference?
Yes, I did, and I
Okay. Was it really Mang Dai?
yeah, yes, I think it was, and I was amazed by the psychology.
Oh,
The psychology was, instead of telling you to do something,
right.
it's giving you the opportunity to partake in it as if it's a privilege.
That's right.
We have this stuff available, and we'll try to make it available to everybody. But it's such a limited supply, and we'll only be able to give it to people 70 plus living in nursing
That's
homes.
right. And you're gonna
Da.
send an invite.
Yeah, and you know what
Wow.
what that reminds me of?
What?
That reminds me of Snow White and her
The
evil
evil
stepmother.
witch,
The evil
also known
witch.
as the queen,
That's the evil queen, and you know what?
the
She's
red
got
apple.
she's got an apple that's delicious for you,
Right.
and she's saying you can have this apple if you're hungry,
Right.
but you have to ask for it, you have to beg for it, and but guess what? Inside that apple, there's a poison.
Right.
So that's basically their psychology. They don't force you to take anything. We don't live in a society where there's gunmen on the street forcing you to do medical procedures in order to enter restaurants. It's all voluntary because people don't understand what's going on. They're ignorant.
Mm-hmm.
They're ignorant,
Mm-hmm.
and by the way, there's been fines levied against people who have refused to do quarantines and people who've refused to hand over some kind of satanic digital identity in order to cross a natural border, and they've refused all that, and they've been given huge fines. But when it comes to the court date, magically at the last minute, the government caves and doesn't prosecute.
Right.
And why is that?
Yep.
And why is that? Because it's unconstitutional. They can't
Mm-hmm.
do that. No, they didn't tell
Mm-hmm.
you that they couldn't do that. They just pretended that you have to do it. And that's a good example of the reaction to the media reaction to the Alberta soon to be premier, who is saying that she's going to defy Ottawa and defy federalism. And
Oh,
they're yelling and screaming and saying, that's unconstitutional. Alberta has to obey the federal government. It certainly does not. In our Constitution, there's something called a notwithstanding clause.
right.
The notwithstanding clause, which has been used many, many times by Quebec for things like their language laws
Right.
and their one language signs and other things that are particular to their culture and their religion, such as abortion, which is against the
Right.
Catholic faith. Therefore, they have never allowed abortions in legally in Quebec. All these things have been defied their federal laws, but they've been defied by the province of Quebec using the notwithstanding clause.
Right.
Because the notwithstanding clause gives power to a province to opt out of any federal law if they feel that their local conditions and their local culture and people object.
Mm.
So that's all that Alberta's doing. They're just having a blanket notwithstanding clause. They're saying we will not agree to any law that takes away what we consider to be our rights and freedoms according to our opinion, and that's the notwithstanding clause. In other words, it is constitutional. But no, you're not going to read that in the newspaper because they're being attacked viciously, illogically, and I would say unconstitutionally by a bunch of people who don't want freedom in this country. And you know why they don't want freedom in this country? Because we are occupied by WEF or foreign-controlled fifth column agitators and people who are actually enemy combatants within our body politic.
Right.
It's like they're like a virus. We're sick.
Yeah.
And you know what? We do need a medical procedure. But not the one that they're talking about. We need one that's going to free us from the infection of these politicians who actually are trying to destroy us.
Of course.
And Alberta is paving the way for that. And I think we're going to see a snowball. And it'll spread, and they'll do everything they can to stop it. But they can't fundamentally because it's not violent protest. It's not unconstitutional protest. It's God-given protest because it's our rights being exerted.
Right.
And those rights are God-given, and they cannot be taken away because we do not live in a monarchy, a total monarchy. We live in a parliamentary monarchy, where theoretically our parliament can trump whatever the monarch wants to do, and if the monarch tries to go against the parliament, that'll lead to a civil war like they had in England in the 1660s.
Right.
Where the monarch tried to fight against the parliament, and you had the parliament's army and you had the monarch's army, and guess who won? The Parliament's army. And guess who lost their head? The monarch. Okay? So that's our tradition. That's our legal foundation. If the monarch disagrees with the Parliament, they'll lose its head or her head. Simple. You know?
Got it.
Stop.